First, let's address the elephant in the room. Do you really have to learn to read music to play guitar? Why not tablature? Tablature, or what we often call tab, was originally created for the lute, and then it was adapted for the guitar. It's much easier to read than standard music notation because it looks like the guitar, but it misses a lot of detail that's included in standard notation, so that's why it's best to learn both. Standard notation is also called staff notation because it's notated on a staff. This is a staff. It's a blank canvas to write notes on, and these are bar lines. Each bar line represents the same amount of time and makes it easier to read the music. You know how credit card numbers are broken up into sets of 4 to make them easier to read? Well, it's the same idea. Rhythm. Music wouldn't be music without rhythm. How long you hold the individual notes is also called note duration. There are 4 main note values that you should be familiar with. It's the whole note, the half note, the quarter note, and the eighth note. If you see a dot behind a note, it increases the note value by 1/2 of the original value. So for an example, if you have a half note with a dot, that becomes 2 beats for the half note, 1 beat for the dot, which equals 3 beats. A time signature is 2 numbers at the start of a staff. The bottom number is a numeral representation of a note. A 2 means a half note. A 4 means a quarter note, and an 8 means an eighth note. That top number tells you how many of those note values can fit in one bar. 2, 4 means that 2 of the quarter notes can fit in one bar. 3, 4 means 3 quarter notes can fit, and 4, 4 means 4 quarter notes can fit. 4, 4 is also called common time because, well, it's common, which is great because it's more straightforward. A whole note lasts a whole bar, a half note lasts a half bar, and a quarter note, you guessed it, lasts a quarter bar. But there's rest. The spaces in music are just as important as the notes. Every note has a matching rest that has the same duration. Instead of playing, you don't. If there's a note and a rest comes up, you don't linger through that rest, you stop, you mute the note. And then there's melody. Every line and space on the staff represents a note. The guitar uses what's called the treble clef, which actually means that that second line from the bottom is a G note. Now, you can logically figure out what the note is on every line and space going through the musical alphabet, but it's not easy to always count up and down to figure out what the note is. So here's an easy way to memorize the notes and the spaces. For the lines, we use a simple phrase, also called a mnemonic. Every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, F. And the spaces is even easier. Face. F, A, C, E. There are notes on the guitar that are above and below the staff. To account for those notes, we use what we call ledger lines. That's just a way to add lines and spaces above and below the staff. Sharps and flats are the notes that fall between the natural notes. That's with the exception of B and C and E and F. Remember the rule of B and C and E and F? On the piano keyboard, the black keys represent sharps and flats. On the guitar, you just go 1 fret up or 1 fret down. Here's a G note. If I go 1 fret up, it becomes G sharp. 1 fret back, it's G flat. If you put a sharp or flat at the beginning of the staff, that says that all the notes on that line or space are going to be sharp or flat. I put a sharp on the staff here, and every note that falls after that, that's an F, would be an F sharp. When we do that, we call that a key signature. That's because by infecting all the notes, you're actually changing the key. There's a bunch of key signatures. They could have multiple sharps and multiple flats. Now, that's not the only way you can change a note sharp or flat on the staff. You could also just write in front of the note directly sharp or flat, and that note becomes sharp. It will, in effect, be in effect for that entire bar. We call that an accidental. Like any language, and yes, music is a language, it takes practice to be fluent. However, it's very useful for guitar players to know even the basics of note reading and to understand tablature, because the two work together very well. That said, it can be very useful for guitar players to understand the basics of note reading and combine that with guitar tablature. Learning how the notes work on the staff is one part of the equation. Watch this next video to learn how to apply that to the guitar. I'll see you over there.